Also, just an update on this before we head to the fun half of the program. When we left a week and a half ago, Kathy Hochul had the opportunity to pick the next Court of Appeals chief judge. This is New York State Court. And she chose a right-wing chief judge nominee, Hector LaSalle. And from what I have read subsequently, it was important to her to appoint a Latino to this position because we have a woeful lack of Latino representation within New York State government. The desire to do that is one that I think is like, I applaud, but the one that I applaud even more, Jessica Ramos and Gustavo Rivera have publicly announced their intention to vote no on LaSalle's nomination. Ramos wrote, Latinos deserve representation at the highest level of the legal system, but we also need courts that respect workers and the right to organize. Rivera said something similar, appreciating the importance of having Latino representation in our government, but in New York, but find a different judge. There wasn't one nominated by the sort of nomination committee, but tell them to go back and do more work. It appears like LaSalle's not going to get out of committee, but it's possible that maybe with the Republicans, they can get it to a floor vote. And it still appears he's going to lose the floor vote. And this is because there was huge pushback by people contacting their state senators in New York State. I mean, this can be done, folks, in these type of situations. If Hochul is a Republican, or if Hochul's even Cuomo, or a slightly different era, maybe you don't see this. But it's a different era. When you contact your state senator, first off, they're like, whoa, because nobody contacts them. They never hear. The idea that they would get 5, let's say, or 10 calls or emails based upon any given issue, that's like, to them, that must represent like a 95% of the opinion in their district.
And when I used to work for the city, like in terms of directing calls to those offices, for example, if someone called the borough president's office where I worked, state offices, state legislatures, both in the Assembly and Senate, are part-time. And also, as a result, their staffs are very small. So it's like it is not only just in terms of politically expedient, it's also just logistically, because they're saying we are getting hounded by calls about these things.
Right. I literally,
the phone is ringing off the hook about this.
To get 20 calls in a day about this shuts down the office almost.
It means a meeting should be happening or something to be like, we need to have a response to this.
And that's, and this is a theme that we've talked about when we have, Bobby Big Wheel on. What's the name of the
Future Now and
Future Now
States Project?
The States Project. Dollar for dollar, like your return on investment in terms of effort or dollars on this level is just so much greater than it is on the federal level. So thanks to those who called their New York State senator. If you haven't, still do it. I mean, like it's because there's a lesson. Every time something like this works, it is training state lawmakers, and it's training ourselves to show like the sort of the paths in which to exercise power.
Yeah, and it's on this issue, like this use of identity politics by the conservative sort of power establishment or whatever basis to use it to conservative ends is really problematic, and it's something that it's good to see like progressives take a stand against, because it's so cynical, and I think it's really dangerous and needs to be nipped in the bud.
Well, that's why, if you have a moment to send a thank you to Ramos and Gustavo Rivera, do so, because it is much harder to push back in this situation without some key Latino lawmakers saying, we want a
Thanks, but no
Latino
thanks.
there, but we want one that supports issues that are important to these people, as opposed to just sharing a last name that resonates with Latino voters. And so that's really key.